Assalamu alaikum viewers, welcome to my channel The Faiza Edits. Many ready-made kurtis comes with sleeves that are partially lined or completely unlined, and that becomes a common problem in a lot of outfits. In today's video, we'll go over a very helpful alteration. I'll guide you step by step on how to easily add lining to these sleeves using a neat and practical method. Before we start, on my channel, I share sewing and alteration tutorials, smart cooking ideas, and simple mom life hacks. Everything explained in an easy and practical way. Let's start today's alteration. First, we need to remove the sleeves from the kurti. Using a seam ripper, carefully open the seam around the armhole and detach the sleeve completely. Once we'll detach the sleeve from the armhole, then we'll have to open the side seam as well. This particular case has partially lined sleeves, but you can follow the exact same tutorial if your sleeve is entirely unlined. This sleeve already has an overlock, so I'm opening the overlock first and then opening the seam that connects the sleeve to the armhole of the shirt. Once the sleeves are detached from the shirt, you can clearly see the existing partial lining. I'm opening this lining all the way across, but I'm not removing it completely, and I'll explain why in a moment. Once the sleeve is completely detached, we will then open the side seam entirely. Now that the sleeves are detached, let me show you the sleeve clearly. I have opened it from here, here, and along the side seam. What I did not open is the partial lining that's already attached. Tailors usually secure lining with a stitch line, and I prefer to keep it intact. Instead of removing it, I'll be covering it using additional lining fabric. So first, I place the lining fabric on top to check roughly if it's large enough. You will need fabric that can cover the entire sleeve, including seam allowance. Ideally, the lining fabric should be slightly larger than the sleeve pattern. In my case, the fabric was a little less, so I used scrap pieces and joined them together. Alright, so I have put a joint and now my fabric is big enough. Let me quickly show you one sleeve that's already done, so you understand the final result first. This sleeve is fully lined, and because the fabric has heavy embroidery, the joint is not visible from the outside at all. From the inside, you can see the joint here neatly added to the existing partial lining. Now let me show you how to achieve this look step by step. First, decide how long you want the lining to be. I didn't want it to go below the orange embroidery line or cover the border, so I ended it slightly above. Once you decide the length, hem the lining fabric first. After hemming, align the hem exactly where you want the lining to end. Take your time here. This step really affects how neat the final result looks. Now fold the lining fabric in half and lightly press it to make the mark. Align this center mark with the center line of the sleeve. Then unfold it so the fabric is evenly distributed on both sides of the sleeve. At this stage, I like to give a small stitch at the hem to prevent the lining from moving. This step is optional, you can skip it if you prefer. Or you can use pins to secure the hem to your desired length. Now flip the fabric so the pretty side is facing you and make sure it's aligned properly. If needed, pause and adjust. Rushing here can affect the final finish. Secure the lining to the sleeve using pins all the way around, making sure the fabric is smooth and not folded anywhere. Since the sleeve is partially lined already, I haven't pinned along the cutting curve. If you are lining a completely unlined sleeve, make sure to pin from all the sides. Now I'll take this to the machine and stitch very close to the edge all the way around. This stitch works like a basting stitch. It copies the exact sleeve shape onto the lining. Once stitched, remove all the pins carefully and trim away the excess lining fabric. Be very careful not to cut the sleeve fabric itself. A little patience here makes all the difference. Now the sleeve is fully lined and ready to be stitched back onto the shirt. Next, we'll sew the side seam. This is also your chance to adjust the fitting, whether you want the sleeve tighter or maybe a little looser. After stitching the side seam, both sleeves are ready. Before attaching them, make sure the top notch or marking on the sleeve is visible. This helps align it correctly with the shoulder seam. So this is how the sleeve looks from the inside once it's fully lined. You can see that the lining is stitched all the way through the length of the sleeve, and because of that it's not going to move around or slide down when the kurti is worn. This is especially helpful with embroidered or sheer sleeves, where loose lining can feel uncomfortable or distracting. Now let me also show you how this looks when it's worn. This is how the sleeve sits when you wear it. You can see that the lining stays in place and doesn't shift inside the sleeve. If you look closely at the seam, you'll notice that the embroidery pattern is perfectly aligned. This is the result of pinning carefully, taking time during alignment, and stitching before cutting anything. So if you follow the steps exactly the way I have shown, opening the sleeve neatly, aligning the lining properly, pinning it well, and stitching before trimming, you should be able to achieve the same clean and professional result without any difficulty. Now let's attach the sleeves back to the kurti. This is where beginners often get confused, so pay close attention. Notice the deeper curve on the sleeve. This always aligns with the front of the kurti. If you will not align the deeper curve to the front of the kurti, you may end up sewing the right sleeve to the left armhole. Align the top of the sleeve with the shoulder seam first. Make sure that the sleeve and the shirt is turned the right way so the pretty side is facing you. Approach the armhole from inside the neckline. This gives you better control and visibility. Match the top of the sleeve with the shoulder seam. Once that's matched, while pretty sides of the fabric are facing each other, pin it to secure if needed. Before stitching it all the way around, align the side seams of the sleeve with the side seam of the shirt. Pin everything in place and now sew all around the armhole. Now both sleeves are attached and you can see how neatly everything has turned out. It doesn't look like the sleeve were removed or altered in any way. The lining is secure, the embroidery is aligned beautifully, and nothing moves inside. To summarize the process, once the sleeve is fully opened, lay it out like this and give it a good press. Place the lining fabric underneath the sleeve and decide the length, whether you want partial lining, three-quarter lining, or fully lined sleeves. Pin the lining all around to keep it from shifting. Add seam allowance on all sides and only then cut the lining fabric. So this is how you can add lining to kurti sleeves that are partially lined or unlined. Take your time with pressing and pinning and avoid cutting before stitching. I hope this makes sleeves lining feel simpler and less confusing.